I'm Charlie Bride with Gold Derby, and today I am pleased to be conducting this panel regarding the Apple TV Plus documentary Girls State with the producer and directors Amanda McBaine and Jesse Moss, as well as cinematographer Laura Hudock. Um, uh, Amanda, Jesse, I want to direct the first question to you. Did you know that you wanted to make a corresponding documentary about Girls State while you were filming Boys State?
Absolutely, we did. In fact, we almost we would have made Girls State first, except Girls State in Texas, where we made Boys State, they were not very receptive to having us come to their program. So we love the Boys State program. We're so proud of the film, but the whole time we were thinking, how do girls do politics? We have two teenage daughters, and we think about this question every day. So I would also say, though, that we were intimidated, we were challenged because Boys State came together so beautifully. We thought, how can we surpass what we've done, but how can we not try?
And just to follow up, when you first started filming the Girls State program, what difference struck you the most between seeing the Boys State program in Texas and the Girls State program in Missouri?
Well, we knew it was going to be different, but I think that the degree of difference was noticeable almost immediately. Even in casting, I will say, we had Zoom this time around, so we had more time. We talked to hundreds of kids, and it was really interesting in a red state how many of them identified as left-leaning, and also how many of them mentioned that their politics were different than their parents. That was a little different than Boys State, but I'd say programmatically, what happened the minute we drove in with one of our kids, I can't remember who went in with first, the way that the counselors were sort of bedazzled and like pom-poms, and it was more of a camp vibe almost immediately than what we'd remembered at Boys State, where the first thing that happens is you get put into two parties, and that tribal dynamic of the Nationalists, the Federalists, which are the fake party names they give the two fictional parties, that happens immediately. So politics starts the second you arrive. With Girls State, it takes a long time to unroll. They sort of keep the training wheels on the bike for a long time, days and days. And I think for the kids, the smart, savvy political kids we went in with, these girls were frustrated by that.
It definitely comes across in the documentary, that frustration. Laura, I wanted to ask you, I can only imagine what it's like to try to keep up with teenagers as they go around mingling with other teenagers. What part of the documentary proved to be the most difficult to capture on camera?
Ooh. Well, I was lucky enough each DP was assigned to a different subject, and my subject, which I followed, was Emily Worthmore, which I felt really lucky to be paired with. And she was the Energizer bunny of the group. So I would say the whole thing was pretty much a marathon. It was just nonstop. From we get a few breaks and lunch and collapse and then get back up again, and she didn't just walk across campus, she ran. I'm like running backwards but behind her. I ran into a pole. It was like I think at one point I literally I said I was like, if you don't slow down, I'm going to die. Like I was like, yeah. So I think it was just like, it was like a marathon, and you really had to have mental and physical stamina for the long haul. Not just to physically like go for 14 hours, but to stay present with the story, to stay connected to what's happening, sometimes emotional moments, and also shooting, full frame, mostly on a 50mm lens, and pulling your own focus. It was challenging. It's a lot of elements to keep going. Yeah.
Considering you were mainly paired up with one person, and in your case it was Emily, did you build a rapport with her? And what was it like? And what was it like building? If so, what was it like building that relationship with her?
Well, gosh, well, first, when I was told, I was going to follow the conservative, I was like, at first I was like, I don't know. Because I followed Trump during the 2016 elections, and it was a pretty traumatizing experience. And
My
but
condolences, by the way.
yeah. But I give it up to Justin and Amanda for pairing us up. I think that's like good casting in terms of putting us together, because she and I just, clicked really well. I think I try to go in with an energy of acceptance and non-judgment and just trying to be a good positive energy, and I think she felt that. And we had like a couple days leading up to it where I got to film her like playing with a rock band, and like some other scenes where she just got to be a little more comfortable with me. Also the key is just like putting the camera down sometimes and having a chat and connecting and as human beings. And like, I'm not just this, scary person with a camera, it's like, I care, let's connect as humans. And that allowed her, I think, to like relax and be real, and not mind that I was there, and just allow herself to be vulnerable. I think, yeah.
To Amanda and Jesse, I think one of the things that I think a lot of people probably are wondering after they see this movie is how did you decide which students you would chronicle in the film, and what stood out the most about some of the subjects that you ended up choosing for the documentary?
Yeah. Well, I think Emily's qualities are really emblematic of the girls, all of the girls we followed in the film. They're whip smart, they're ambitious. Their politics are different, so that's true. But they're also vulnerable and open to having a camera, to having a film crew, to being the subject of a documentary. And that's a lot to ask, to both be yourself and be followed. And I think the long process of casting, of meeting a lot of young women, just getting to know them, was really figuring out who had those kind of contradictory qualities. And we know from Boys State, like those were the kids we followed too. And those are the kids who surprise us. And so we felt that with Emily. The moment we met her, she said she wanted to run for president in 2040. It's kind of a breathtaking amount of ambition. But she's got a big heart. She's a kind of a movie star, I think. If you've seen the film, and the camera loves her. She's really open. And I think that's what we were excited about. In this film, Boys State only has 4 characters. In this film, we have 7. And that meant we had a bigger team and more crews, but we needed all these different voices in the film, and all these different girls have wildly different experiences. So that was important.
I'm also curious as to have you kept in touch with the subjects? I'm guessing that that most, if not all of them, have probably graduated high school by now. What have they been up to since? Because the movie concludes about 2 years ago. What have they been up to since then?
This period of life, right, where you graduate high school and you start college, I mean, you do so much growing, changing, shape-shifting. You literally move out of your house, your childhood home. I mean, it is breathtaking, actually. And I've loved getting to know these kids at this point in their lives, and then staying close to them. We're still very close to most of the guys in Boys State, and all these women in Girl State have traveled with us from the premiere of the film at Sundance through every sort of chapter afterwards. Actually, Emily is with us right now. They have a group chat amongst themselves, a text chain, and then they have a group chat that includes us. So, and apparently Emily told us today that in their group chat, they call us mom and dad. And she's like, I don't mean to offend you. And I was like, I love that. Come on. That's like, I feel that way too. They're sort of family. And that's been one of the reasons we do this, honestly, is you do invite these people into your lives. They invite you into their lives, obviously, when you film them. But that's a meaningful relationship and it lasts a long time.
I wanted to say something about that, and it relates to what Laura was talking about in that connection with Emily, which is that when we met these kids, they were 17 and they were kids really, and teenagers, but not adults. And so I think our care for them was really important. Getting their parents' permission and not just their permission was part of the process. What Laura talked about, putting the camera down, so important, knowing when to do that. And then when you're done with production, for us as the directors, I'm sharing a rough cut of the film with all the girls in the film and asking for their feedback. I think that was just part of the journey that we felt we needed to go on, because we really wanted them to feel like partners in this process, which they are.
I meant to ask you actually, had any of the women that were subjects of the film, had any of them seen Boy State prior, and did that like make them more excited to work on to be a part of the project?
A few of them did watch Boy State before, and in fact, Emily not only watched Boy State, but she asked to talk with Ben, who is the conservative character in Boy State, as like her sort of due diligence, which I think was awesome. And then you have a kid like Cece, who's running for governor against Emily, who decided she didn't want to watch Boy State. She didn't want to know. She, you know, sort of, you have these different kind of paths, right? I remember in Boy State, Renee refused to watch the rough cut and was like, I'll see it at the premiere. And I was like, okay, but we are giving you the option and we'd love your feedback. But that was what he wanted to do, and that we have to be cool with. So yeah, having seen Boy State, I think made certainly the Girl State program more comfortable with what they knew we were going to do when we asked to film Girl State that year in Missouri. They had all seen Boy State.
Laura, you know, you've done a lot of work as a cinematographer, specifically for documentary films, and I'm curious as to how do you end up, you know, working specifically as a cinematographer for documentary films? It's a very specific niche, and I'm wondering, how did you end up becoming a part of that?
Well, I actually shoot narrative and documentary. So how did I get into documentary film in general, or basically?
Yeah, and specifically shooting documentaries as well.
Well, gosh, it was actually a bit of a long path, because I was actually an AC on narrative films for a number of years, and was only going to take the narrative path. But to be honest, when I was coming up as an AC in the 2000s, there honestly wasn't a way up. There was one female camera operator in New York, a couple of DPs, you know, we had Ellen Curtis, Nancy Schreiber. So it honestly didn't seem like there was a pathway forward for a period of time. And the only opportunity I could get to shoot was docs. To break in as a DP, because for me, I didn't want to be an AC for the rest of my life. So I actually, you know, started shooting some reality, which I'm not a fan of, but I needed to build some credits. And then, you know, eventually got to build my docs. And I started with still photography, like documentary still photography. Actually, I have one of my photos up here, but and you know, started shooting bigger and bigger projects. Like I got hired on Vice on HBO, which was like an Emmy winning show, and then Women with Gloria Steinem, and then The Circus, and some, you know, number of feature films. So it's been a long climb. And then only after I built a resume and docs, then I went back to some of my narrative contacts, like operators that were now DPs when I was an AC. And I was like, look, just like, I can go to Afghanistan and run from the Taliban and still film, like I can handle a film set. So, so I started getting shots, like operating on scripted shows as a day player, and then full time. And then now you know, I'm DPing narrative and doc, and I enjoy having a career where I cross over between both. And I think because I had that sidestep and built this parallel path. In documentary, I think I'm a better cinematographer in narrative all around, like understanding natural light, being present to the moment, my handheld skills, like it's been a long path, but a parallel path. Yeah.
Jesse and Amanda, you know, it's very easy to be very pessimistic about politics and just the current state of everything, I guess. And especially when you were shooting this, the Dobbs decision had been leaked, but the official, and you say at the end of the movie, 6 days after the whole thing concluded, the actual decision came down from the court. But I'm curious, is there anything that you saw while filming this project that made you especially hopeful for the future?
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons that we make these films. I do think that young people, and particularly the people who want to go to these programs, are fired up, they're engaged, they're young, they're pragmatic optimists. I think that to be around people who are at 17 still open, flexible, because they haven't been forced to pick a side yet. They haven't been to the ballot box and checked, I'm a this, I'm a that. So they tend to be open to not only political conversation, but also open to listening, which is, for me, maybe what's happening less and less and less. We're sort of volleying messages across at each other, and dialogue is hard. And so for us to go to these spaces, which are rare, like a boy state and girl state, which is a place where these people with different politics are forced to connect and be present to one another and talk not through social media, but face to face. That's exciting, and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable a lot of the time. There's a big scene in the middle of a girl state where a group of girls who are not actually, have not yet been able to talk about abortion a week after the Dobbs decision in sort of a formal way in the program, they get together around a lunch table and have that conversation informally. And it's stunning to watch, to me. I think you must have been shooting it, Laura, because Emily was there. And Emily has a certain politics, her very close friend who was very, very liberal. They suddenly had to see each other as political beings. And because they'd gotten to know each other as human beings, it was a really wonderful and uplifting and complicated and hard conversation. But I loved the dialogue was happening. And to me, that's what's refreshing. I know politics is very hard to talk about. We're constantly traumatized by political news and the melodramas that are going on in the adult state, but I'm refreshed by these young people. That's kind of my answer. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think, you know, you see in the film what young women are up against, why we don't have more women in elected office. There are structural obstacles that they face. I mean, Laura talked about this in our own industry. You know,
Yes,
we're not
politics.
immune from these societal problems. And I love the film for showing us these young women confronting those limitations, pushing against them, calling them out. You know, that's not us. They are doing that. And I think it's not just this program, it's our society. And yet they are resilient. You know, you see two young women in the film suffered terrible defeats, but they rise up, and that message of resilience is empowering. And like, you know, we have young women come to see the film with their parents, and I think that really is powerful. So that's the positivity here.
Laura, I wanted to, so we are an awards site, and you know, a couple weeks ago, you got some really amazing news that you received your first career Emmy nomination for your cinematography for this project. What was it like learning that you had you got nominated for an Emmy?
Wow. I cried with happiness. It's you know, it's like I said, it's been a long road. And I'm still trying to climb my way up, you know, and like to have like some recognition really gives me encouragement to keep going and strive further. And yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of, it's hard to believe. I don't know. It's all a dream. I'm just
Has it not really sunk in yet?
yeah, no, it's sunk in. I mean, I think it's gonna be weird because I'm like planning to go and like finding a dress, and I'm like, I don't know, like, oh, it's gonna be, I don't know. I think it's gonna be surreal. I don't know, but I just want to enjoy it, enjoy the moment, and see everybody, and just enjoy it, enjoy the moment. Yeah.
That's the best way to do it, I tell you. To Amanda and Jesse, on sort of like the flip side of that, you guys got a very pleasant surprise. Surprise 2 years, or maybe it was a surprise, maybe it wasn't. I guess 3 years ago, when Boys State claimed the Emmy for Best Documentary or Nonfiction Special. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, it's transcendent, indescribable. These are such risky projects. These are unscripted films, truly. We don't know where these young women are going to take us. Where they took us in Boys State was a tremendous surprise. To find audiences connect with these people the way we did is really validating. I love that the nominations for this film, for our cinematographers and for us and for the film, really lift up them and their voices and the message of the film. It's so hard to stand out. We're in such a crowded media environment. To me, it gives life to the film, more life to the film, which is really a great thing.
And I'm also just curious about one other thing about because it's asked in the film. We see the Missouri Boys State. Their leader got to be sworn in by the governor of Missouri, Mike Parsons, I think his name is. I could never remember because also he came in after Greitens was forced to resign for his dalliances, I guess you could say. Did you ever find out why the governor doesn't do that for Girls State as well?
I think that they've changed that. I think they've changed the sequencing, but because the Girls State program is happening slower, right? Their governor is elected pretty late. I'm not really sure what that was about. I'll be honest. We were filming our kids reacting to why that had happened. We never actually went to ask who and why that happened, but I don't think it happens anymore. A lot of things changed actually within the program the following year as a result of our kids, frankly, pushing. And to our great surprise that Emily was really the person who did the biggest kind of push of all. And that to me is, again, why we do unscripted verite filmmaking is you just don't know at the beginning of the project what the heck's going to happen by the end. But that she really was on board and uncovering the disparities on the biggest disparity of all, which is the financing of these programs. So to me, that though hasn't changed completely, and that's the work, right? And that's the work in microcosm and in macrocosm of sort of our country.
And that's the work that's on us. It's not just that program. It's for all of us to continue to call out those structural problems in our own industry, in our political system, and to support women who are running for office. And I love that they are the ambassadors of this message. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us about the film.
And just another thing, I forgot that I wanted to ask about this, and I'm glad that Laura, please add into this, since you actually did shoot, since you were filming Emily. That last maybe 20 minutes of the film, it kind of turns into a bit of a slightly different film with her trying to research the differences between Boys State and Girls State in Missouri, and some of the incredible inequities that we saw there, just in terms of just the budget being 3 times higher for Boys State than it was for Girls State. Did that kind of jar you in sort of capturing something that was a bit different than the normal events that normally happened in the program? And I open this up to everyone here to address that.
Well, she didn't do well in her speech, right? So it was clear at that time that she wasn't going to get governor, and she was down and out. And really what it was this incredible turn in her story, where instead of just giving up, she found another path to her own victory. And it was just, I don't know. I wasn't really thinking that it was different. I was just following what was unfolding. And yeah, it turned out to be a great story arc.
Yeah, and Amanda, what was it like when you were starting to cover that and realize that her story was going in that direction?
I mean, again, it's what you hope for. That I think these programs, we hear a lot about how they have the potential to be this sort of crucible experience, even though it's only like 7 to 10 days. For some kids, it really is transformative. And I think for Emily, we knew she had the capacity to learn a lot from this week, but I don't think we knew. I mean, she comes in saying, I want to be president, a rock star, and a journalist. And she thinks she can do all three. And you think, wow, that's a lot. And in fact, in this week, she runs for governor. It does a whole song at the rock show, which is actually, I mean, at the talent show, which is not in our film, but she did a great performance. And then what she really did was the story that she covered. I think that was where she recognized, wow, this is where I feel myself, and you can see it. She's a good journalist. She's a good listener. She has a big heart. She's curious. She, she doesn't back down from asking the people in power tough questions. And so that is exciting to watch somebody come into their voice. It's what we watched in Boy State 2 with one of our political characters. So, you hope for that in nonfiction. You really do. And sometimes you don't get it. In this case, we did. And Laura was there, right there, to capture it with, with her own big heart. So this is all, I think we're lucky to have met her and worked with Laura, and, we're thankful for that.
Well, Jesse, Amanda, and Laura, thank you so much for joining us for this panel. This was great, and we wish you all the best over the next couple of weeks in the lead up to this year's Emmys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Chris.